Nau mai haere mai ki te karanga o te whenua. I'm Jade Gibson, and today we're talking about kai sovereignty, what it means, why it matters, and how two wahine are building a model to reclaim it. This is the story of Te Pū Oranga Whenua and TakiToa. Te Pū Oranga Whenua, TPOW, came out of a gathering of Māori agribusinesses, brought together by Ag Research in 2019. What they found was a room full of people who had significant land interests, yet many had never met each other.
Kia ora tātou, he uri ahau no Ngāti Awa, no Ngāti Rangitihi, me te Āti Haunui-a-Pāpārangi, ko Lisa Warbrick ahau. Today's kōrero, I'm wearing my pōtai as Pou Arataki for Te Pū Oranga Whenua, or TPOW. To give some background, I guess, to this kaupapa, TPOW was formed as a consequence of a number of Māori agribusinesses that were brought together by Ag Research in about 2019. There ended up, out of 20-odd organisations, 8 of us sitting around the table. And those 8 were wahine Māori. And those 8 had a common interest in understanding how we could better have a relationship with papa tuanuku. Primarily, we were talking about land use and, commercialisation of, but it was always about protecting our whenua and how we could utilise our whenua and acknowledging papa tuanuku to support our whānau, to support hapori. So it became a domestic story. It became an interest in feeding our own whānau first.
Then Tracey Bayliss came in through a different door, through Ag Research, and a shared interest to support whānau to access kai directly from the local farms around them.
Kia ora, my name is Tracey Bayliss. I had been doing some work with Ag Research and I got to know some of the Māori partners in that as we were looking to try and figure out how we could get a mobile abattoir so that the meat that was being grown on the farm could then be, well, for me it was being sold, so family farm selling the meat, but for the Māori partners it was being able to give back to the beneficiaries. And through that, when Ag Research called Māori partners together, iwi hapu Māori agribusiness, I got an invite from Lisa.
And at that stage, your position became solidified when you put your hand up and said, look, what do you need? And that's become solid in her role as kai tuitui for TPOW.
From those conversations came TakiToa, a mobile meat processing unit designed to shorten the food chain from paddock to plate. But getting there was not simple.
And out of that, of course, has rolled the TakiToa story. Spent a number of years, how can we sell our meat direct, and sort of figuring out we needed to have some kind of mobile abattoir system. The policy wasn't set up for us to be able to do that. We'd lost the ability to be able to process our stock. And then we went down to Pahuera. We were going around all the different members to see what were their aspirations and, what were they needing, or how could we support them. And it was Pahuera that had said, how can we get our stock from the farm gate to their plate? There were a lot of blocks that were stopping us from being able to sell our meat directly. Yeah, when I sort of was explaining that to you, Alice, you were like, ain't right. So I had another partner in crime that was like, yeah, well, this needs to change. And so TakiToa was formed. And from there, we were able to produce, bring in the people that we needed to design and build our mobile abattoir. Policy changed in amongst that time so that mobile abattoirs were able to be built and we were able to sell our meat direct. We did a risk management program. And the short story of those 5 odd years of, development is that we have just recently been able to grow the meat. We can process the meat and we've been able to go and sell the meat, which we have done on the local marae. So that shortened food chain has just been amazing.
Lisa came in as a relationship engagement specialist, connecting whenua Māori entities with capability support. At the time, she certainly wasn't a farmer, but she came with the questions that turned out to be the most important ones.
She who knew nothing about farming and did not own gumboots, and I think that's important to recognise because Tracey, who knew a lot, and Granddad's farm, Granddad had been farming biologically for 60 odd years. Between us, we got this balance of, I guess, fearlessness, because I didn't know any better, and Trace had a partner in crime to punch through some significant challenges But some of those key things for me was appreciating, again, how paru our kai system is in Aotearoa, with the intensified inputs and farm systems, how expensive our kai is, and how dominance is given to exporting. I didn't know that at the time, but what I did know is I don't want my kids eating paru kai, and excluding the small farmers from an opportunity isn't cool. And so when we took our time to explore what that model would look like, and ag research were a huge help, we went from a hiss and a roar going, yeah, let's just find some money and get shit done and roll it out, to, oh, hang on a minute. Our understanding that shifting from a currently centralised monopoly meat industry to a decentralised model takes a lot of considerations. So that was one of the aha moments, right? But then with the help of ag research, people like Shane Leith that were involved and Suzanne Boss given direction, that short supply chain became quite significant value for us. But there were idealisms, like what does it look like if we're processing and we don't use packaging? And what does it look like if we distribute from the marae, and the marae clips the ticket to be able to get some regular income? But primarily it's like, how do we get the beautiful kai, the quality and taste of kai that Grandad grows and delivers to our whānau? And so that's been an exercise in probably initiative, fearlessness. I use that word because when I look back, I'm like, holy eka, that was a big risk. And then the challenge of capital investment. We were asking for like $5, but people were like, you'd be probably more taken seriously if you were asking for $100. So in the end, Trace and I, with the support of TBOW, dug deep to be able to bring our dream together. So it was like a personal endeavour to getting it right. And the other was around how do we engage other Māori landowners to be part of this TakiToa movement of affordable, accessible, nutritious kai to our babies. And so it's a different modelling. And that requires a review of current infrastructure, delivering from the marae. Our learning, for example, it's not practical if we're looking at scale to be able to use butcher paper to wrap everything.
Everyone enjoyed the nostalgia of that, though. It's like, oh, this is just like the old days.
For me, anyway, it's become a movement of shifting that kai sovereignty. And to shift that, you have to shift the systems that we're currently embedded in. And again, there's a degree of decolonising and shifting away from the economic drivers and asking the very real questions of how, the potential of domestic market. TakiToa is our retirement plan, and we want to make our monies. And this is a financially viable opportunity. Part of that significantly is because it's a short supply chain. It's literally from the farm to the TakiToa processing unit to distribution on the marae. I say it simplistically, there's a whole lot of background into it. The first phase we tested in Ragland and distributed from my Uenuku marae and Poihakena over a period of about 3 months. Learnt, recalibrated, and now looking to move into the second phase of what that looks like. And that's working with some of our Māori farm systems and what that unit could look like, servicing them in that community. Part of it, I use the language in that resilience, community resilience, localised resilience as well. And so the intention is, once we know what we know, being able to share that knowledge with others around the motu and to replicate. We've done the hard yards, you don't need to. Here's what you could be doing in your way.
The model isn't just about consumers in whānau. It changes everything for the farmers too, including Grandad, who was selling his meat directly but was constantly having challenges with the status quo.
The farm systems and the farm ownership, we've found through our research, makes a real big difference in the decision making. Grandad always says it's hard to be green when you're in the red, for example. He's at a different phase of his life. He can afford to try different things. And what we've found, it becomes a much bigger and harder conversation when you're, taking it to a hapu or an iwi conversation, because it's not just the decisions that need to be made there, it's how, as Les has already talked about, the monopolisation of that industry, and how if they don't supply all of their product to a particular plant. Like there's risk in that. There's different levels of risk for different people. And when you've got an iwi who's responsible for, thousands, it's quite different to a family. And so this is the stuff that has all been part of our research with TakiToa and stuff that we're finding along the way. Like we didn't have all the answers. And like Lee said, we just come into it quite like rose-coloured glasses. This is going to be amazing. And then you start to see, the effects that it can have. And not just like, we don't want to go out and close down plants. Of course we don't, because there's a lot of employment that happens in there too. So, you've got to take that into consideration. So how can it work to fit and benefit the most people without it being detrimental to whānau as well?
With the meat story, we always know when there's meat, there's spud and veg involved. And so part of our research or interest is how does TakiToa then become that conduit for community resilience in providing that meat, spud and veg story, the Manaaki. And so we're investigating that. We've got ideas, and it's not a new concept, right? It's happening around the motu and in sporadic places, but the mobile meat processing opportunity has been a unique addition to that kai story, and how it can potentially complement the Manaaki intention and those community-driven kai sovereignty stories.
That's cool how our membership kind of weaves in all that as well, as we're looking at a project, around the food forest, that whole Manaaki conversation, that project there kind of fits in with the TakiToa, and so it really nicely complements.
Whānau are finding it hard. It's so expensive. Shout out to a whakaruriho, a women's refuge, whose funding got cut for food bags to their whānau. And so driven by intention to look at other ways of ensuring that these whānau are well taken care of. And I know that these decentralised kai systems provide an opportunity to impact the challenges we have locally. And so while there still needs to be the export story, we need to get better at our domestic story, harder. There's no reason why we shouldn't be able to access good quality kai and it be affordable. And that's our mission. That's quite a strong driver. So yes, there's TakiToa, and it's a mobile meat processing unit that we can do primary and secondary processing, but it's become part of this larger whakapapa. So watch this space. Whānau, watch this space. The ideal is these transitions are about aligning again to the maramataka and to the sustainability relationship with Papa Tuanuku, and then that short supply chain response, and then to potentially how much stock they need to carry. The mobile systems are only competent at the moment to facilitate capped number of beasties each week. So it won't facilitate a large farm system that is predominantly feeding into the supply chain for exporting. So it is an and story. And still evolving. We don't know a lot, but we have started talking about what that transition system looks like.
Again, with Grandad, when we started wanting to sell the meat directly, it did mean quite a change to his farming system, which I didn't appreciate, to get that regular supply. Like he was saying, this is a lot. There's big changes that need to happen for me to be able to make sure that the small numbers that we were needing at that time are ready for processing. But what Lisa's talking about, I think now, is like, well, how can we, in a partnership with our farmers, how can we make that work better so that it isn't such a strain on the farmer and it isn't a strain on the environment? Being able to offer a flat schedule rate all year round, we know doesn't happen now, and it just takes the pressure off the farmer knowing what they're going to get for the year. They've never been able to budget like that before. So, that's going to be quite innovative, really, if we can find a system like that.
One of the bigger ideas inside TakiToa is changing who benefits from the value of what's produced, all the way down the chain. As we build these Māori-led kaupapa in the industry and market, it has potential to operate under a strong model where our landowners get a genuine financial return by actively carrying out their role as kaitiaki.
I think the other thing, Trace, and my learning from you and Grandad was the benefit sharing. So at the moment you get a schedule rate, set schedule rate, and that's it. Some of the potentially idealism and what we're wanting to test in this phase is what does it look like if the farmer is rewarded for the sustainable practice in their farm system. But what does it look like if they're acknowledged and recognised for their biological systems that support papa tuanuku and the quality of kai? And then what does it look like if they get a return of the value add? So everything from nose to tail in TakiToa is our intention. Everything is utilised. Because at the moment it's a schedule, right? And we know that nose to tail utilisation is well supported within the monopoly centralised systems today. And I'm really looking forward to having conversations with these farmers to co-design. You know, if we're here and we're talking about accessible, affordable, short supply chain and getting their input, which we've been insistent on as TakiToa's evolved over the last 5 years. We've brought in farmers to contribute to our story, which has been a saving grace in a lot of our being able to be practical and pragmatic. I think the other note of interest is the distribution channel. We've explored, there's no doubt there's interest in marae engagements. You know, if it's every Thursday at Poihakena, TakiToa's there and the whānau know, the community know, the wider community. Why not base it there instead of a market or a shop? I love the opportunity to include our marae and contribute to the potential for some of our marae rejuvenation. That's a motivator for us. But it is about, given the constraints within the supermarket, those systems, how we can distribute to market and scale. But that's a wandering, and that's something that the farmers and the farm systems that we work with and talking to them about their circle of influence.
For those who might not know, MPI stands for the Ministry of Primary Industries. They're a government agency responsible for our primary sectors, like food, fibres and agriculture. They're meant to balance economic growth with the protection of our natural resources. But often, processes required to be in this industry mean that landowners don't have much resource left over for the protection and restoration of the natural resources we're all reliant on.
When you're a mobile system, you have an accreditation for the risk management plan, or the RMP. So through MPI, you have to have an RMP. That RMP, whilst it's to export standards, mobile meat processing systems are limited as to where they can export. It's only local exports or domestic export markets, for example, as far as Pacific Islands, not to the Middle East. There's limitations as to how many beasties you can process a week because of this RMP. So the next 5 years, I think, are going to be interesting in our conversation today and what the environment looks like over the next couple of years, particularly as challenges are happening for our current exporting market and the challenges they're facing with historical export numbers in countries changing dramatically. So those changes have the potential to affect us domestically. And we're sitting in there just doing our little, chipping away. And I like that we chip away. I like that we've been primarily operating under the radar. But to see at least one unit in each ro'e would be amazing. But for now, we'll just, phase 2 of 3 phases rolling out before we're confident that would happen. Or at least confident to share our learnings.
Te Pū Oranga Whenua are chipping away at one of the most entrenched systems in Aotearoa, the centralised, export-driven meat industry. They're doing it with a shared dream, with farmers, marae and a mobile abattoir that could shape the future of kai sovereignty in Aotearoa.